The human ship was growing. Not weapons, not shields, something quieter, something that made the Vethari flagship's own silhouette begin to copy itself on the viewport. Archon Veth Koron stood at the obsidian rail, his amber eyes fixed on the impossible shape. The ship had been 900 meters of unremarkable civilian hull, no guns, no reactor flare, no threat. That had been 90 seconds ago. Now it was 2 kilometers long and still expanding, its surface smoothing into a perfect mirror of the immortal Resolve asterisk. Koron's claws dug into the rail. A low subsonic hum vibrated through the deck, 44.7 hertz, 52 hours and counting. He had not slept. He would not sleep now. Ambassador Thessaly, Varn pressed her palm flat against her navigation console. She did not look up. Archon, the mass reading is still increasing. The energy signature does not match any known weapon system. It does not match any known asterisk anything asterisk. Her voice was quiet, precise, haunted. She had seen this before, not this exact shape, but the pattern. Her grandmother had told her stories of the Kavani before the conquest, stories of a species that waited, that built things that did not fight back, that simply reflected. Koron's vibration rose. It is a projection, a holographic trick. The humans are trying to buy time. He turned to Commander Drueth, who stood at the tactical station with the young, arrogant certainty of a second who had never been wrong. Fire a warning shot. Disable their propulsion. Drueth hesitated. Archon, our sensors show no propulsion system to disable. The ship appears to be asterisk made asterisk of the same energy as the platform field beneath Europa. We missed it. We missed all of it. The Vethari had scanned the quiet system twice. Their sensors found nothing. That was the first mistake. The second mistake was assuming that a species that had been silent for 408 years had nothing to say. 408 years, Varn said softly, still not looking up. That is not a gap, that is a foundation. Koron's tail lashed. This is not a history lesson, Ambassador, this is a conquest. He raised his clawed hand to signal the fleet, but the human ship was still growing. 3 kilometers now. 4. It was no longer a mirror of the immortal Resolve asterisk. It was becoming a mirror of the asterisk entire fleet asterisk. 900 ships, each one reflected in a smooth, silent surface that had not fired a single shot. Koron's vibration became audible, a low, bone-trembling hum that made the junior officers flinch. His certainty, 244 years of conquest, 6 campaigns, 4 subjugated systems, all of it pressed against the glass of a ship that would not fight back. "What is it asterisk doing?" he demanded. Varn finally looked up. Her palm never left the console. "It is telling us exactly what we are. But to understand how we got here, you have to go back. Back to when they first looked at the quiet system and saw only a yellow star, 8 planets, 1 blue-green world that had been cataloged as Category 4, administrative paperwork. Back to the moment a Vethari scout ship dropped out of warp and transmitted its first scan. 3 days earlier, the Scout asterisk blade of certainty had entered the Sol system. Its sensors had been calibrated to detect weapons signatures, military shipyards, planetary defense grids. It found none. It found a single ship, 900 meters long, drifting at the edge of the asteroid belt. No visible weapons. No standard reactor. The databases listed it as a research platform, an obsolete model decommissioned 200 years ago. The scout commander logged it as non-hostile and sent the coordinates to the fleet. Archon Koron received the report on the Obsidian Bridge, the flagship's command deck, where the air smelled of recycled pheromones and burnt ozone. He laughed. "1 ship," he said to Drueth, who stood at his right hand. "They are either very brave or very stupid. Either way, they will be very dead." Drueth smiled. "Shall I order the fleet to formation?" "Not yet. Let them see us first. Let them count the 900 ships and understand the difference between a species that conquers and a species that submits. He ordered the scout to broadcast the standard ultimatum, the same one they had used on 38 other species. You have 3 of your minutes to transmit your surrender. After that, we will not ask again. The transmission went out. The human ship did not respond. Coron's claws tapped a rhythm on the obsidian console. Read it again. They read it again. Silence. They are not answering, Druith said, his certainty beginning to crack. Archon, what if they do not know how? They know how, Coron said. Every species knows how to surrender. They choose not to, that is a choice, and choices have consequences. But Ambassador Varn, at her navigation post, was not looking at the ultimatum. She was looking at the energy signature of the human ship, a faint, subsurface ripple that did not match any known power source. She had seen that ripple before in the records of her own people's conquest. Her grandmother had described it as the sound of a world that is not yet ready to speak. She opened her mouth to speak, then she closed it, her palm pressed flat against the console. 3 days earlier on Earth, in a concrete bunker carved into a Norwegian mountain, Admiral Soren Wren sat at a metal table and drank cold coffee from a chipped ceramic cup. The coffee had been cold for 20 minutes. He drank it anyway. The cup was white, faded, with a chip that fit his thumb perfectly. It had been his father's. His father had been a shipwright on the lunar colony. He had built the first generation of defense platforms, the ones that had been decommissioned, supposedly, 200 years ago. Wren set the cup down. He was 54 years old, 33 years of service, and his face looked like a man who had been waiting so long he had forgotten he was waiting. But he had not forgotten. Commander Desai, his tactical officer, stood beside the holomap. The map showed the outer system, the approaching fleet, 900 ships, the scout, the ultimatum. They're asking for surrender, Desai said. Wren picked up the cup again. Are they? Desai blinked. Sir, they have 900 ships, we have 1 vessel, and we've been quiet for 408 years. The council records show we have no standing military. They think we're a Category 4. They think that, Wren said, because we let them think that. The bunker door opened. Captain Thorne limped in, a young officer with a damaged leg from a training accident but sharp eyes that missed nothing. Admiral, I've finished the cross-check. The long stillness was never deactivated. It just kept running. It updated its own protocols every 37 years. It finished the final iteration 9 hours ago. Wren nodded slowly. He had known that, or he had hoped it. The long stillness was a protocol written 408 years ago, when Earth first joined the Galactic Council. The Council had offered membership, but humanity had read the fine print. Every species that joined eventually became a client state of the Vethari Empire. So humanity had done something else. They had built a system that would not conquer, would not attack, would not even defend in the traditional sense. They had built something that could wait, that could watch, that could, when the time came, become a mirror. The Marianas Trench isn't a warship, Thorne said, shaking his head. It's a seed. The platforms beneath Europa, 500 of them, they don't generate weapons. They generate a localized space-time density field. Any object that enters the field's radius gets mass copied. The ship is a mirror. The whole system is a mirror. Desai stared. 500 platforms. We've been hiding 500 platforms under ice for 400 years. We didn't hide them, Wren said. We just didn't mention them. The council never asked. The Vethari never looked. They saw a quiet system and assumed submission. They were wrong. He set down the cup. The coffee was still cold. He did not need to raise his voice. We built this when we realized the galaxy would never stop coming, he said. Every species that joins the council eventually becomes a client. Every species that resists gets conquered. We chose a third path. We chose to make the aggressor see itself. Thorne's eyes widened. "Admiral, the ultimatum. They gave us 3 minutes. We have 40 seconds left." Ren looked at the holomap. The Vethari flagship was moving into position. 900 ships, 3 kilometers of armored hull, plasma cannons, shield technology, and 1 human ship, 900 meters of civilian research platform, waiting. "Open the channel," Ren said. Officer Okonkwo at comms keyed the transmitter. "They're listening, sir." Ren did not look at the camera. He looked at the cup. Then he spoke quietly to Captain Thorne, but the words went out on all frequencies. "We have been quiet for 408 years, he said. That quiet was not submission. It was the sound of 500 platforms updating themselves beneath the ice. It was the sound of a ship that had no weapons because it did not need them. It was the sound of patience. And patience, Captain, is measured in what returns to you." He picked up the cup, tilted the last cold drops into his mouth, and set it down again. "Now," he said, "we see if they are ready to see themselves." On the obsidian bridge, Varn's console flashed. The mass reading of the human ship had changed. Not a weapon, not a shield, something else. She opened her mouth. "Commander, the mass reading is increasing. The ship is changing." Koran spun to face her. "Changing asterisk how?" "It is not deploying weapons. It is not activating shields. It is asterisk growing." The viewport showed the human ship, still 900 meters, but its hull was rippling, not with energy but with geometry. The shape was reforming, smoothing, extending. 900 meters became 920, became 1.1 kilometers, 1.7, 2.3. The silhouette was no longer a civilian research platform. It was becoming something else, something that matched the hull lines of the immortal Resolve asterisk. Druith's voice rose. "Archon, it's copying us, it's becoming us." Koran's vibration intensified. He could feel it in his teeth. "Fire, fire all cannons, destroy it." "We cannot," Varn said, her voice steady. "The energy signature, it is not a shield, it is a field. Any projectile we fire will be copied, returned, multiplied. We will be fighting ourselves." Koran stared at the growing shape. The ship was now 3 kilometers, 4. It was no longer a mirror of his flagship alone. It was becoming a mirror of the entire fleet. 900 ships, each reflected in a smooth, dark surface that had not moved, had not fired, had not even acknowledged the ultimatum. The field beneath Europa, 500 platforms, was activating. He could see it on the secondary display. The ice cracking, the platforms rising, each one generating the same space-time density field. The whole system was turning into a reflection chamber. Every ship in his fleet would see itself, duplicated, multiplied, waiting. "Withdraw," Koran said, but the word came out as a whisper. "Archon," Druith said. "Withdraw the fleet, now." But the ship was still growing, and Koran understood with a certainty that cracked like ice that this species had never been weak. They had been patient. They had spent 408 years building something that would not destroy him, but would make him see exactly what he was. And that, he realized, was worse. He said it again, "Withdraw all ships now." The order rippled through the obsidian bridge like a tremor through ice. Commander Druith's hands moved over his console, transmitting the command to the 900 vessels. But his eyes never left the viewport, where the human ship had swollen to 5 kilometers, a perfect, dark mirror of the entire Vethari fleet, each ship reflected in its own silent copy. "It's still growing," Druith said, his voice cracked. "Archon, it's still." "Then we move faster," Koran snapped. But his own claws were trembling against the rail. The subsonic hum from his body had become a physical pressure in the air. The crew could feel it in their teeth. Varn could feel it in her chest, a vibration that matched the old stories, the ones her grandmother had whispered when she thought no one was listening. Varn did not speak. Her palm remained flat against the console. The mass reading was still climbing, 6 kilometers, 7, But she understood now that the growth was not a threat. It was a statement. A mirror does not attack. It only reflects. And the Vethari Empire had just seen itself for the first time. She watched the fleet begin to turn. 900 ships, each one angled away from the system, their plasma drives flaring to life. It took time, minutes that stretched like hours. The human ships, still mirroring their formation, began to shrink as they withdrew. 9 kilometers became 7, 7 became 5, 5 became 3, 2.3, 1.7, 1.1. 900 meters, then 920, then 900 again. The ship settled back to its original shape, unremarkable, civilian, silent. The ice-cracked surfaces of Europa had closed. The 500 platforms beneath had gone still, their spacetime fields dormant. The system was quiet again. But Coron was not quiet. He stood at the rail, his amber eyes fixed on the viewport where the human ship now drifted alone. The mirror was gone. The threat was gone. But the memory of what he had seen, asterisk what he had been forced to see, asterisk, remained. Archon, Druoth said carefully, the fleet is clear of the system's outer boundary. We can resume course. Do we fire on the planet, punish them? Coron did not answer. He turned slowly, his tail dragging across the obsidian deck. His vibration had stopped. In its place was a silence so deep that the crew held their breath. No, he said finally. We do not fire, we do not speak, we leave. 408 years of preparation had come down to a single moment. On Earth, in the Norwegian bunker, Admiral Wren watched the Vethari fleet disappear from the holomap. The red dots flickered and faded, until only the single blue dot of the Marianas Trench remained. Commander Desai let out a breath she had been holding for 3 days. They're leaving. Admiral, they're actually leaving. Wren picked up his cup. The coffee had long since gone cold, but he drank the last few drops anyway. They're not leaving, Commander. They're retreating. There's a difference. They didn't fire a single shot, Desai said. We showed them a mirror and they ran. Because they saw themselves, Wren said quietly. They saw 900 ships that had conquered 39 species. They saw a fleet that had never been stopped, and they saw that fleet looking back at them, multiplied, waiting. They understood that we had been ready for 4 centuries, that we had built something they could not fight. Captain Thorne limped to the table. Admiral, we still have an open channel to their flagship. Officer Okonkwo says we can transmit. Wren set down the cup. He considered for a moment, then he nodded. Send them this, he said, 4 words. He spoke them slowly, and Okonkwo keyed them into the transmitter. Is this enough for you? The transmission went out across the void, carried by light-speed signals that would take minutes to reach the retreating fleet. Wren did not wait for an answer. He turned to Desai and Thorne. Stand down the platforms, but keep them active. We're not done yet. The Empire will have questions, and they will come back not with ships but with words. We need to be ready for those too. On the Obsidian Bridge, the human transmission arrived 12 minutes later. Coron was still standing at the rail, his back to the crew, when Druoth read it aloud. Is this enough for you? Druoth paused. Archon, it's a question. They're asking if we've had enough, if we understand. Coron did not turn. His voice, when it came, was flat and empty. Tell them we are leaving. Do not answer the question. But Archon, they asked. I know what they asked. Coron's claws scraped against the rail. And I know what they mean. They are not asking if we are satisfied. They are asking if we have learned to see ourselves. And the answer, he stopped. His breath came in a long, slow hiss. The answer is yes. Varn watched him from her console. She had never seen him like this, not in 6 campaigns, not in 4 subjugated systems. He had always been certain, always been right. Now he stood in the wreckage of that certainty, and she could see the cracks spreading. She looked down at her own reflection in the dark glass of the console. Her grandmother's stories had been true. The Kavani had not been conquered because they were weak. They had been conquered because they had not yet learned to build mirrors, but the humans had learned. And that, she thought, was the difference between survival and submission. 3 hours later, the fleet was in deep space, far beyond Saul's gravity well. Coron had not spoken since the transmission. He had retired to his private quarters, leaving Drueth in command of the withdrawal. The bridge was quiet, too quiet. The junior officers worked in silence, their movements careful, as if the wrong sound might break something. Varn remained at her post. She did not need to navigate, the course was set, the coordinates locked, but she stayed because she had nowhere else to go. She was a conquered species, a Kavani serving on an imperial vessel. She had no home, no people, only the memory of a grandmother who had told her that patience was not weakness, it was a shape that could hold the truth. She pulled up the sensor logs from the Sol system. The data was still there, the mass readings, the energy signatures, the moment the ship had transformed. She watched it again, frame by frame. 900 meters of civilian hull, becoming 5 kilometers of mirror, becoming the shape of an empire's own hubris. She stopped the playback at the moment of maximum extension. The ship had been 7 kilometers then, a perfect copy of the entire fleet's forward formation. But she noticed something the others had missed, something that made her pulse quicken. The ship had not just copied the Vethari ships. It had copied everything within the field's radius. The asteroids, the debris, the scout ships, the ambassador's personal shuttle her own shuttle, the one she had used to transfer from the Kavani observation post to the immortal Resolve That shuttle had been in the system's outer belt, attached to the Scout blade of Certainty It had been within the field when the ship expanded. And now, according to the logs, there were 2 of them. 2 identical shuttles, one still attached to the Scout, one drifting in the field's former area. The mirror had copied her shuttle perfectly, including its onboard systems, including its data logs, including, she realized with a cold certainty, the classified transmission she had sent to her grandmother's contact network, the one that detailed the Empire's vulnerabilities. She had been feeding information to the remnants of the Kavani resistance for 8 years. She had never been caught, but if the humans had a copy of her shuttle's data, if they had accessed its logs, they now knew everything she had told the resistance. They knew about the Empire's supply lines, its blind spots, its political fractures. They knew things the Vethari did not know she knew. She pressed her palm flat against the console. The heat of her hand left a faint print on the dark glass. The humans had not just mirrored the fleet. They had mirrored everything and now they had her secrets. She looked up at the viewport, where the stars stretched into the black. Somewhere behind them, the quiet system waited, patient, silent, holding answers she was not sure she wanted them to have. On Earth, in the bunker, Wren was staring at a different data feed. Captain Thorne had brought it to him 20 minutes ago. "Admiral, we picked up something interesting during the field's active phase. The mirror didn't just copy the warships. It copied every object in the radius, including a small shuttle attached to one of their scouts." Wren looked at the display. The shuttle's data logs were scrolling. He saw cargo manifests, flight plans, encrypted communications, and then he saw the transmission history. "She's a spy," Thorne said quietly. "Ambassador Thessaly Varn, Kavani, serving on the flagship. She's been feeding intelligence to a resistance network for years. We have everything she sent." Wren sat back in his chair. He turned the ceramic cup in his hands, thumb tracing the chip. "Does she know we have this?" Thorne shook his head. "She might guess. The mirror copied everything. She's smart enough to realize that, but she hasn't transmitted anything since the withdrawal. She's staying silent." "Then we stay silent too," Wren said. "We don't use this information, we don't act on it, we just hold it." "Admiral, this is a huge advantage. We could." We could destroy her, Ren said, or we could make her an ally. One choice wins a battle, the other wins a future. He set down the cup. Keep the data secure. Do not share it with anyone outside this room. When the time comes, we'll decide, but not now. Now we wait. He looked at the holomap, where the 900 red dots were still moving away, growing smaller, fading into the dark. The Empire was retreating, but they would not forget. They would send inquiries, diplomats, spies. They would try to understand how a Category 4 species had turned their own fleet away. And they would not find an answer because the answer was not a weapon. It was a mirror, and mirrors do not explain themselves. 8 hours after the withdrawal, Ambassador Varn sat alone in her quarters. The room was small, a cot, a desk, a viewport that showed the same black stars she had seen for 80 years, ever since the Empire had taken her from the Kavani homeworld. She was 112 years old, which was young for a Kavani, but old enough to remember the before, old enough to remember her grandmother's voice, telling stories of a species that had refused to fight. She had always thought those stories were just stories. She had always believed that the Empire was inevitable, that resistance was futile, that the only way to survive was to serve quietly and hope not to be noticed. But the humans had proven her wrong. They had not fought. They had not surrendered. They had simply waited. And in waiting, they had built something that made the Empire's certainty look like arrogance. She had been feeding information to the resistance for 8 years. She had never believed it would change anything. But now, after what she had seen, she wondered if her grandmother had been right all along. She opened a private file on her console, a record of her transmissions, stored locally, never sent to the Empire's central database. She had kept it as a reminder of who she was. Now it felt like evidence. If the Empire ever found it, they would execute her. If the humans had copied it, they already knew. She deleted the file, then she deleted the backup. Then she sat in the dark, staring at nothing. The ship was quiet. The fleet was quiet. Archon Koron had not left his quarters in 12 hours. Commander Druoth was pacing the bridge, uncertain, afraid to make a decision without orders. The Empire had never retreated from a conquest. No one knew what to do now. Varn pressed her palm against the console. The warmth of her skin left a faint mark on the glass, a ghost of a handprint that faded as she watched. She had given the Empire her loyalty for 80 years. She had given the Resistance her secrets for 8. And now she had given the humans something she had not intended, the truth about who she really was. They had not acted on it. They had not exposed her. They had not even acknowledged the copy of her shuttle's data. They were waiting. And that, she realized, was the most terrifying thing of all. The transmission came 48 hours later. Archon Veth Koron had not left his quarters. He had not eaten. He had not spoken. The crew moved through the obsidian bridge in silence, afraid to make a sound that might draw his attention. Commander Druoth had been pacing for 23 hours, his ambition curdled into something thin and uncertain. He had sent 3 priority messages to the Empire's capital, requesting guidance. He had received no reply. Ambassador Varn remained at her navigation post. She had not slept. She had not looked at the private file she had deleted. She had not acknowledged the copy of her shuttle that floated somewhere in the quiet system, holding every secret she had ever sent to the Resistance. She simply sat, her palm flat against the console, and waited. The transmission, when it came, was not from the Empire. It was from Earth. Officer Okonkwo's voice crackled across the human bunker. "Admiral, we're receiving a direct comm from the Vethari flagship. It's not encrypted. It's just a message. No video, no signature, just text." Admiral Wren set down his cup. The coffee was cold, as always. He had not reheated it in 48 hours. He had not needed to. "Read it." Okonkwo paused. "It says, 'Why did you not fire? We gave you every reason. We gave you the ultimatum. You could have destroyed us. You chose not to.'" "Why?" Wren was silent for a long moment. Then he reached for the cup again. Send back, because we had nothing to prove, you had everything to see. On the obsidian bridge the reply arrived. Druith read it aloud, his voice hollow. Because we had nothing to prove, you had everything to see. Coron's door slid open. He emerged slowly, his gray scales dulled, his amber eyes flat. The subsonic hum that had once vibrated through the deck was gone. In its place was a silence that seemed to press against the air. He walked to the viewport and stared at the empty black. The fleet was still retreating. The system was far behind them now, invisible against the curve of space. But he could still see the ship, the mirror, the impossible shape, the patience that had waited 408 years to show him who he really was. Send them a question, he said, his voice low and rough. Ask them, he stopped, his claws curled against the rail. Ask them what they want. Druith hesitated. Archon, they've already. I know what they've already done. Ask them what they want. The question went out. The minutes stretched. Varn watched the comm display, her palm never leaving the console. She knew the humans would answer. She did not know what they would say. When the reply came, it was not addressed to Coron. It was addressed to her. Ambassador Thessaly Varn, we have your shuttle's data. We know what you sent to the Resistance. We know who you are. We have not shared this information with the Empire. We are not sharing it now. We are waiting. Are you? Varn's breath caught. She felt the heat of her palm against the console, the faint tremor in her fingers. The humans knew. They had known for 2 days, and they had said nothing. She looked up at Coron, who was still staring at the viewport. He had not seen the transmission. No one had seen it but her. She typed a reply, her fingers moving before her mind could stop them. I am waiting. What do you want from me? The answer came quickly, as if they had been expecting the question. We want you to keep watching, keep sending information to the Resistance, keep doing what you have been doing, but now send it to us too. We will not use it against the Empire. We will use it to understand them, and when the time comes we will use it to end them, not with weapons, with truth. Varn stared at the screen. Her grandmother's voice whispered in her memory, patience is not weakness. It is a shape that can hold the truth. She typed one word. Yes. On Earth in the bunker, Ren watched the single word appear on the display. He nodded slowly. Good, she's with us. Captain Thorne frowned. Admiral, are we sure about this? She's a spy. She's been working against the Empire for years, yes, but she's also been working for them. We don't know if she can be trusted. We know enough, Ren said. She sent us her secrets. She didn't delete them. She didn't hide them. She let us see who she really is. That's not the act of someone who's going to betray us. He picked up the cup. Besides, we don't need to trust her. We just need her to keep doing what she's doing. She's been feeding the Resistance for 8 years. Now she feeds us too. Desai stepped forward. And the Resistance, what happens when they find out she's sharing with us? They won't find out. Not unless we tell them. Ren set down the cup. And we won't tell them, not until we know what they want, not until we understand the full shape of what we're building. Varn closed the comm window. Her hands were trembling, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Archon, I have analyzed the human transmission patterns. They are consistent with a long-range defense posture, not an offensive one. They are not preparing to attack. They are preparing to wait. Coron turned slowly. His amber eyes were hollow, but something flickered in them, something that might have been curiosity or fear. Wait for what? Varn met his gaze. For the Empire to understand what it saw, for the Empire to ask the right questions, for the Empire to realize that we have been fighting ourselves all along. Coron's claws scraped against the rail. You speak as if you know them. I speak as someone who has seen them, Varn said. I saw the ship. I saw the mirror. I saw what they built. They did not build weapons. They built something else. Something that made us see ourselves. And we did see ourselves, Archon. We saw the 900 ships that conquered 39 species. We saw the certainty that had never been questioned. We saw the arrogance that believed it was inevitable. And then we saw it reflected back at us, and we understood that it was not inevitable at all. Koran's voice dropped to a whisper. You are saying we were wrong. I am saying we were blind. Varn pressed her palm flat against the console. And now we have a choice. We can continue to be blind. We can pretend that what happened in the quiet system was a fluke, a trick, a temporary setback, or we can open our eyes. We can ask ourselves why a species that could have destroyed us chose not to. We can ask ourselves what they are waiting for, and we can ask ourselves what we will do when they are ready to answer. Koran was silent for a long moment. The bridge held its breath. Then he spoke, his voice low and rough. Open a channel to the human ship. I want to speak to their admiral. The transmission went out. On Earth, Ren received it. He looked at the cup in his hand, then at Desai, then at Thorn. He wants to talk, Desai said. Do we answer? Ren set down the cup. We answer. He stepped toward the holomap. The image of Koran's flagship appeared, not the ship itself, but the shape of it, the silhouette that had been mirrored and multiplied. He had seen the mirror. He had seen what it could do, and he had seen the Empire's certainty crack like ice. Open the channel. Koran's face appeared. The gray scales, the amber eyes, the claws that tapped against an obsidian rail. He was not the same creature who had arrived in the system 48 hours ago. He had been diminished, hollowed, cracked. But there was something else in his expression now, something that looked almost like humility. Admiral Ren, Koran said, we have seen what your species can do. We have seen that you could have destroyed us and you did not. We have seen that you built something we could not fight. And we have seen that you are waiting. So I ask you now, not as a conqueror, but as a commander who has learned to question his own certainty, what do you want from us? Ren was silent. The cup sat on the table behind him, cold and chipped and patient. He reached for it, turned it in his hands, and then set it down again. We want you to understand, Ren said. We do not want your submission. We do not want your territory. We do not want your resources. We want you to understand that the galaxy does not belong to the Empire. It belongs to every species that has ever looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. And we want you to understand that the ones who wait, the ones who build and prepare and refuse to fight, are not weak. They are patient. And patience is not submission. It is a foundation. Koran's claws stilled. A foundation for what? Ren met his gaze. A foundation for the truth that you have been fighting yourselves all along, the truth that every species you conquered was a mirror you refused to see, the truth that you are not the inevitable future of the galaxy. You are just one of many shapes. And the galaxy is big enough for all of them. Koran was silent. His vibration had stopped entirely. In the quiet, Varn could hear her own heartbeat. Then Koran spoke again. And if we do not understand, if the Empire refuses to see what you have shown us. Ren picked up the cup. Then we will wait. We have been waiting for 408 years. We can wait a little longer. He took a sip of the cold coffee, then set the cup down. That is what we want from you, not your surrender, your understanding. And if you cannot give us that, he paused, then we will keep waiting until you can. The channel closed. On the obsidian bridge, no one moved. Koran stood at the viewport, his claws pressed against the rail, his amber eyes fixed on the empty black. The human ship was far behind them now, invisible, quiet. But he could still feel its presence, not as a threat, but as a weight that had been waiting for 408 years. He turned to face his crew. His voice, when it spoke, was quiet and measured. Commander Druath, send a message to the capital. Do not send a report, send a question. Tell them to ask themselves, what are we fighting for? And tell them I will not give an answer until I am certain I know what it is. Druath hesitated. Archon, the capital, will demand a full report. They will want to know why we retreated. They will want to know. They will want to know what we saw, Koran said. And we will tell them, but we will not tell them with words. We will tell them with silence. Because the silence is what they need to hear. The silence is what they need to understand. 12 hours later, Varn sat alone in her quarters. The data from her shuttle was still out there, in the quiet system, in the hands of the humans. She had sent them her secrets. They had sent back a question, and she had answered. She opened a new private file. This time she did not write to the resistance. She wrote to the humans. I am still watching, I am still waiting, and I am still sending you everything I see. The Empire will not understand what you showed them. Not today, not tomorrow, but one day they will. And when they do, I hope you will be ready. I know I will be. She closed the file, pressed her palm against the console, and stared at the stars. Days passed. The fleet continued its retreat, a slow withdrawal through the void, each light year a measure of the Empire's wounded pride. Archon Koran had not left the bridge. He stood at the viewport, silent, his amber eyes fixed on the stars that no longer held the same certainty. His vibration had not returned. In its place was a stillness that the crew found more unsettling than the hum. Ambassador Varn remained at her post. She had transmitted 3 reports to the humans, each one a careful record of the fleet's course, the crew's morale, the political fractures that were beginning to show. She had not been caught. She had not been suspected. She had been invisible as she had always been, a shadow that served and watched and waited. The reply from the Empire's capital arrived on the 4th day. Commander Druoth received it, his face pale as he read. He walked to Koran and handed him the tablet without a word. Koran read the message. His claws tightened. The text was brief, cold, bureaucratic, the language of a council that had never been challenged. Archon Veth Koran, your withdrawal is noted. Your request for inquiry is denied. The Empire does not retreat from Category 4 species. You are ordered to return to the capital and explain your actions. Your command is suspended pending review. The fleet will be reassigned. Koran did not speak. He handed the tablet back to Druoth and turned to the viewport. The stars were still there, indifferent, countless. He had spent 244 years serving an institution that had just told him his certainty was irrelevant. They are ordering me to return, he said quietly. They are suspending my command. They are pretending that what we saw did not happen. Druoth swallowed. Archon, the council has never faced a retreat. They do not understand. They think you acted out of fear. They are wrong. Koran's voice was flat. I acted out of understanding, and that is the one thing the council cannot tolerate. On Earth in the Norwegian bunker, Admiral Wren sat at the metal table. The cup was in his hand, cold and chipped, its glaze worn smooth where his thumb rested. He had not reheated the coffee in 4 days. He had not needed to. The waiting was the point. Commander Desai entered with a data slate. Admiral, we have intercepted a transmission from the Vethari capital to Koran. They are recalling him. Suspending his command. They are treating the retreat as a failure of leadership, not a strategic shift. Wren set down the cup. That means they don't understand. They don't want to understand, Desai said. They are doubling down on the same assumptions that brought them to us in the first place. Wren nodded slowly. Then we keep waiting, we keep showing them the mirror, we keep being patient. He reached for the cup, lifted it to his lips, and drank the last cold drops. Patience is not a tactic, it is a way of being, and if they cannot understand that, they will keep coming back, and we will keep showing them themselves. On the bridge of the immortal resolve, Varn watched Koran. She saw the stiffness in his shoulders, the way his claws no longer tapped but simply rested on the rail. He was a commander who had been told that his reality was an illusion, and he was trying to decide whether to believe the illusion or the reality. She opened a private channel to the humans. She typed quickly, her fingers steady. They are recalling him. The council is dismissing his report. They will send another fleet. They will not learn. What will you do? The reply came within minutes. We will show them the mirror again, and again, and again, until they understand that the only thing they are fighting is themselves. Varn closed the channel. She pressed her palm against the console, feeling the warmth of her own skin, the faint outline of her hand. She had given the Empire 80 years. She had given the Resistance 8. She had given the humans her secrets, and now she was giving them her faith. Coron did not wait for the Council's next order. He did not turn the fleet around. He did not acknowledge the suspension. He opened a channel to the human ship, not to Ren, but to the quiet system itself, to the mirror that had shown him the truth. I am not returning to the capital, he said, his voice carrying across the void. I am not retreating because I am afraid. I am retreating because I have seen what you are, and I know that the Council will never understand. So I am leaving. I am taking my ship and my crew, and I am going to find a place where we can learn what you have taught us, where we can learn to see ourselves. He paused. His claws scraped against the rail. I do not ask for your forgiveness. I do not ask for your trust. I only ask that you remember this. The first time the Empire saw itself, it ran. The second time, it will understand. The channel closed. On Earth, Ren watched the transmission. He did not smile. He did not cheer. He simply picked up the cup, turned it in his hands, and set it down empty. He will not be the last, Ren said. There will be others. Some will run. Some will learn. Some will fight. And some will come to understand that the mirror is not a weapon. It is a teacher. Captain Thorne limped to the table. Admiral, what about the Council? They will send another fleet. They will try to destroy us. They will try, Ren said, and we will show them the mirror. And then they will try again, and we will show them again. And one day they will stop trying, because they will understand that they are not fighting us. They are fighting themselves. He looked at the cup, the chip in the rim, the worn glaze, the emptiness. The mirror is not a thing, he said. It is a choice, and we have made ours. Varn watched the stars from her small quarters. The fleet was still moving, but its course had changed. Coron had turned away from the capital, away from the Council, toward the edge of known space. He was taking his crew, those who would follow, into the unknown. She did not know if he would survive. She did not know if the Council would pursue them. She did not know if the humans would ever fully trust her. But she knew one thing. She had seen the mirror. And she had learned to see herself. She opened a new file. This time she wrote to the humans with no secrets, no hesitation. I am coming with him. I do not know where we will go, but I know that I will keep watching, I will keep waiting, and I will keep sending you what I see. Because I believe that one day the galaxy will learn to see itself, and I want to be there when it does. She closed the file, pressed her palm against the console, and looked out at the stars. The cup sat on the metal table in the Norwegian bunker, empty, cold. The coffee had been gone for 4 days. The patience had never been colder or more precise. Admiral Ren reached for it one last time. He did not drink. He simply held it, feeling the smooth chip where his thumb had rested for 17 years. Then he set it down, stood up, and walked to the holomap. The map showed the quiet system, the yellow star, the 8 planets, the blue-green world. And beneath the ice of Europa, the 500 platforms still waiting, still patient, still ready to mirror whatever came next. Ren did not speak. He did not need to. The system was silent. The waiting continued. And somewhere beyond the reach of the map, a Vethari fleet was turning away from its empire, carrying an ambassador who had learned that patience was not submission. It was a mirror that could hold the truth. The stars were still there. They had always been there, and they would still be there when the next fleet arrived. They waited.